My name is Nadia Elise Carter, and I am 30 years old. Birthdays aren't supposed to start with a gray bubble. At 7:12 a.m., my family group chat lit once and died. Congratulations. No name, no emoji, no follow-up. The message came from my mother's number and got swallowed instantly by my sisters, Megan arguing with autocorrect about her new puppy's name, Rachel dropping a video of her toddler beating blueberries into a galaxy of stains with a wooden spoon. Not one person typed, "Happy birthday, Nadia." I told myself a sweet lie. People are busy. Maybe they're planning something. Maybe forgetting is kinder than not caring. Around noon, I texted my mom. Me, "Hey, any plans tonight? Just wondering." An hour and a half later, she replied, "We're too busy to celebrate, honey. We'll do something later this month." No explanation, no apology, just policy. By 8 that night, the apartment was dim and warm. My daughter was 6, my son 4, and they were building a blanket fort in the living room. Lights off, cartoons murmuring like a distant tide. I half watched, half scrolled. The next swipe broke something. Instagram. My mother's account. A wide table I knew. Expensive, loud, downtown. Champagne flutes. Balloons. A smiling centerpiece card tilted toward the camera. My parents. All 3 of my sisters. Their partners. Even the toddler. Even the puppy. Bibbed with a napkin like an honored guest. Caption. Nothing matters more than being together. The little card said, "Congrats on your new baby." And by baby, they meant the dog. They had thrown a party for the dog on my birthday and hadn't invited me. I didn't comment. I didn't call. I just listened to my son whisper, "Do castles need windows?" And tried not to think about who was clinking glasses. Another buzz. Venmo request. From Mom. $1,300. Memo. Dinner for everyone. Love you. Love you like an invoice. I stared at the teal button. For years, I'd been the dependable one. The card on file. The "we'll pay you back" that never arrived. First month, last month. A surprise Airbnb. An anniversary tab. Megan's MLM rescue. Rachel's rent for 2 straight years. The math was ruthless. I kept us all together by paying to be excluded. My thumb hovered. The shape of a habit is a circle. See need, send money, get silence. Instead, I typed, "Me. Hope dinner was nice. I won't be sending the $1,300. Also, starting this month, I'm done paying Rachel's rent. I've supported her for 2 years. It ends now." I muted the chat, put the phone face down. The room felt different, airier. Not peace, possibility. I tucked the kids in, answered a work email, and told my boyfriend Ian, the simple version, I said no. He stared at me like I'd changed the ending of a long, predictable show. "Proud of you," he said, and kissed the crown of my head. He didn't tell me to reconsider. He didn't offer to spot the family. He just held the line with me. Maybe that's love, someone who doesn't need you to be the bank to be worth keeping. The bell rang at 8:03 the next morning. Not a press, an assault. I knew who it was. Only one person leans on a doorbell like it owes interest. My mother walked in before my hello finished forming. Sunglasses on, though the sky was clouded, mouth set like a judge reading a sentence. My father followed, hands in his jacket pockets, practicing the ancient art of being present without participating. She didn't sit, she didn't speak. She went straight to the kitchen like she was reaching for a familiar light switch and opened the cabinet with our plates. She lifted one, held it for a second, and dropped it. Porcelain exploded against tile, a white flower of shards. I blinked. "Mom?" She took another, let it fall. Another. My daughter's head appeared at the hall corner. Big eyes, small breath. "Upstairs," I said, voice steady for them, not for her. "Now." My son took her hand. Their feet thundered the stairs. I could feel their questions rising like steam under the door. "Mom, stop!" I heard my voice from somewhere behind me. She moved to the mugs. Fingers found the one with a school photo baked into the glaze. Tiny hands, gap-tooth grin. World's best mom. My son had made it for Mother's Day. She held it long enough to imagine mercy and then released. It didn't shatter, just cracked down the middle and rolled under the stove like something trying to escape. "What are you doing?" I asked. Nothing. No rage, no words. Just the ritual. You will pay or we will break what you love. My father watched with the sad civility of a man who has learned to call chaos a hard day. I stepped closer, felt ceramic crunch under my heel. "Leave," I said. "Now." She reached for the Pyrex. The big one. The one that survives Thanksgiving and lasagna and the years between. I took out my phone. "If you don't walk out in the next 30 seconds, I'm calling the police." That word fractured the air. Police. My father finally touched her elbow, whispering something that didn't include me. She froze. The Pyrex hovered, then returned to the shelf. They walked past without apology, without explanation, the way a storm passes, low, certain, promising to come back when the weather suits it. The door closed. The kitchen smelled like dust and old rain. I stood in a snowfall of plates and wanted to weep and also to laugh, because sometimes the truth is too absurd to hold without both. I didn't call the police. Not because they didn't deserve a report, but because my children had already heard enough violence for a breakfast hour, and I did not want their first memory of justice to be their grandmother in cuffs. I swept. I photographed. I saved the doorbell cam footage of their entrance and exit, a clean loop of trespass. Not because I was hungry for revenge, but because I finally understood the rules of this game. They rewrite stories. Evidence is how you keep the ending. By noon, the house was quiet in the wrong way, the kind of quiet where your body remembers sound and waits to flinch. The kids asked if Grandma was coming back. "Not today," I said, and left out the part where I didn't know about tomorrow. My phone pulsed on the counter, 15 missed calls, 7 voicemails, 3 texts from numbers I didn't know, 1 new message in the family group chat from Megan. "You're unbelievable. No question, no curiosity, just a verdict." I kept the phone face down and made lunch. Peanut butter on toast triangles, apple slices, milk. Normal food, like an incantation. I said out loud, to the kitchen, to myself, "We're okay." The words felt both brave and thin. Sometime after 2, Aunt Lydia's voicemail arrived, smooth and measured, as if fairness could be spoken into existence. "Nadia, sweetheart, I don't know exactly what happened, but your mother is very upset. She says you threatened them, and she's crying, and we're all a little concerned about how this is affecting everyone. I just hope you'll be the bigger person here." The bigger person. The job I never applied for but have worked my whole adult life. The one who pays. The one who keeps the peace by purchasing it. My hands shook, not from fear, but from the realization that fear had been the interest on every family loan. I didn't respond. Not to Megan, not to Lydia, not to the number that texted, "Call me." "It's urgent." I opened my laptop and labeled a folder receipts. Into it went the photos of broken plates, the cracked tile, the time-stamped video, the Venmo request, the screenshot of Mom's dinner post with the puppy bibbed in a napkin like a christening. I added a note. "This started with $1,300, but it isn't about money. It's about a contract I never signed." When Ian came home, I showed him the kitchen like a crime scene that had been swept. He crouched to look for the mug under the stove. We found it together. 2 halves of world's best mom, a seam like a fault line. He held both pieces gently, as if holding an apology the world would never give me, and said, "We'll glue it, even if the crack shows." "Do you think I made it worse?" I asked. The question you ask when you've spent a decade training yourself to be a lock instead of a person. "I think you told the truth," he said, "and the truth is worse for people who need your silence." That night I brushed my daughter's hair until it fell like a curtain across her back. My son asked if castles need windows. "Yes," I said, "so the light can get out as well as in." After bedtime, I sat in the hush and typed a single paragraph. Not a scream, not a drag, just facts. I read it 3 times, turned off comments, and hit post. Because if you don't tell your own story, someone will invoice you for theirs. The morning after I posted, the quiet didn't last. It never does when silence stops serving them. By breakfast, my phone was a storm. Missed calls stacked like dominoes. Messages poured in from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, all asking, what happened? No one asked if I was okay, just what happened, because gossip travels faster than grief. I didn't delete the post. I didn't clarify. I let it breathe. The truth deserved a little daylight. Then the retaliation began. First came Rachel's Facebook essay, 3 paragraphs of melodrama and selective memory. "Some people confuse boundaries with cruelty," she wrote. "Imagine being abandoned by your own sister when you need her most." She tagged me. She tagged our mother. She even tagged her ex-boyfriend, the same one I paid to move out after he cheated on her. The comments were a funeral for facts. You're better off without toxic people. Family doesn't owe you money, but they owe you love. Dozens of strangers mourned Rachel's suffering. No one mentioned the 2 years of rent I had covered, the electric bill I paid last month while she vacationed in Miami, or the credit card I maxed out on her emergencies. I closed the app. My hands were trembling, but not from anger, from recognition. They were staging a story, and I'd seen this one before. I just used to play the villain quietly. That same afternoon, my daughter's school called. The receptionist sounded apologetic. Ms. Carter, a woman claiming to be your mother-in-law, phoned us asking for access to your daughter's school records. She said she was concerned about the child's home environment. My mother-in-law has been dead for 3 years. I thanked the woman, hung up, and sat perfectly still. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was character assassination, with paperwork. By the time Ian got home from work, I'd logged every call, screenshot, and voicemail. He found me at the kitchen counter, legal pad open, handwriting tighter than my jawline. He read the first line aloud. Pattern of harassment following financial cutoff. Then he looked at me. You're documenting? Yes. Good, he said. Keep going. That night, 2 noise complaints were filed against us. The officer who came to the door looked embarrassed, flashlight half raised. Someone reported screaming and glass breaking, he said. Ian gestured toward the kids asleep upstairs. We were reading Charlotte's Web. The officer nodded, apologetic, and left. I stood there listening to the quiet and realized something chilling. They were testing how far they could push before I snapped. The next morning, my car was keyed. Deep, deliberate scratches, front to back, like handwriting in metal. That afternoon, Ian's tire was slashed. We didn't say the names out loud, but we both knew. The same last name as mine. Still, I didn't post. I didn't accuse. I just waited, because the truth always builds its own megaphone. Then came the email. Subject line, a cry for help. From my mother, sent to our entire extended family. She wrote that I was mentally unstable, that Ian was controlling me, that my children might not be safe. She attached screenshots of texts from years ago, cropped to look unhinged. Messages where I'd once said I was drowning in responsibilities, where I'd begged for space after a bad week. She left out the parts where she'd been demanding money between those messages. The email ended with, "Please, everyone, reach out to Nadia before it's too late." I read it twice, heart still, but blood loud. She hadn't just rewritten the story. She'd dragged my children into her fiction. I didn't respond. Not to her, not to anyone who hit reply all. I called my lawyer instead. While he spoke, I opened my receipts folder. I added the email, the school call log, the officer's report number, the photos of the car scratches. I labeled them defamation, harassment. Each file felt like reclaiming a square inch of air. Before any papers could be filed, something shifted. A message appeared from my cousin Melissa, the one who'd stayed neutral so far. Check the group chat, now. I opened it expecting more chaos. Instead, I found a screen recording, posted by my cousin Evan. It was a Snapchat conversation between Rachel and Megan. Rachel's caption, "Let's see how long it takes Nadia to crack. She always folds when mom plays the kid card." Megan replied, "Bet she calls crying before the end of the week. She's weak when it comes to guilt." The group chat exploded. One cousin typed, "This is disgusting." Another wrote, "She's been their ATM for years." Even Aunt Lydia went silent. Then Uncle Mike, who never said anything to anyone, dropped a single comment. "Now you all know what she's been living with." Within minutes, my mother left the chat. Then Rachel. Then Megan. No apologies, no explanations, just exit. I stared at the screen and felt something new. Not relief, not victory, just the faint echo of space where a lifetime of noise used to be. For the first time, I didn't feel crazy. I felt documented. That night, Melissa called. Her voice trembled, but not from guilt, from clarity. "You've done more for this family than anyone. You don't owe them anything. I'm sorry I stayed quiet this long." She told me things I hadn't known. How my mom had been complaining for months that I didn't share like I used to, that money changed me, that she'd been laying the groundwork for this implosion long before I ever said no. It hit me then. This wasn't a breakdown. It was a pattern finally exposed to sunlight. I sat there, phone to my ear, looking at the empty plate rack, still scarred from last week's storm, and realized something sacred. Peace doesn't come free. It's paid for with boundaries. By midnight, I'd made a decision. If they could weaponize guilt, I could weaponize closure. The next morning, I started cutting cords, streaming accounts, shared family logins, group subscriptions, gone. Then I went further. I called the family lawyer, the one who'd handled my parents' estate paperwork. Remove my name from everything, I said. Financial, medical, legal. If something happens, it's their daughter's turn to step up. He didn't argue. He just said quietly, "Understood." I ended the call and sat in silence for a full minute. The house felt different, not empty, just mine. That evening, I wrote one more line beneath my Facebook post. If you've ever benefited from my silence, that era is over. And this time I turned comments on. By morning, the post had gone viral within the family tree. Old friends and distant relatives began commenting, not with judgment, but with recognition. Some shared their own stories. Others simply wrote, "Proud of you, Nadia." And beneath it all, I felt something I hadn't in years, solid ground. The next 3 weeks were quiet. No Venmo requests, no last-minute emergencies, no, "Can you just cover this one thing?" texts. Just dinner with Ian, laughter from the kids, a peace that hummed like background music instead of thunder. But peace, in my family, is never permanent. It's just the pause between storms. Because on the 23rd morning, there was another knock at the door. When I opened the door, the past was standing on my porch. My father stood there first, hands in his jacket pockets, eyes tracing everything except my face. Behind him were Megan and Rachel, like two shadows that had outlived their light. No mom. That was the first surprise. I didn't move to let them in. The air between us felt heavy, thick with all the words we'd thrown online and the ones we'd never said out loud. Dad spoke first, voice rehearsed. "We need to talk." I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. The kids were playing inside. They didn't need to see this. Ian's silhouette appeared briefly in the hallway window. He stayed back, but I could feel his presence like a hand on my spine, steady, silent. Rachel crossed her arms. She wasn't wearing her usual sunglasses for fashion this time. It was armor. "We're losing the apartment," she said flatly. Not we're. As if I was still part of the team. Megan jumped in before I could answer. "We know we screwed up, okay? But we're still family. You can't just leave us hanging like this." I said nothing. The last time I'd filled the silence, I'd filled it with money. This time, I let the quiet cost them something. My dad sighed the way people do when they think exhaustion is a substitute for empathy. "Your mother's not speaking to anyone. She's unraveling. Your post embarrassed her. Lydia stopped inviting her to anything. It's tearing the family apart." That last line actually made me laugh, a small, disbelieving sound. "Tearing the family apart?" I said softly. "What family?" Megan blinked, startled by my calm. I took a slow breath. "The one that forgot my birthday? The one that let Grandma smash dishes in my kitchen while my kids watched from the stairs? The one that told everyone I was unstable because I finally said no?" Rachel's chin wobbled, but her tone stayed transactional. "Can you just help with first and last month's rent, just this one time, to get us stable again?" There it was, the script they'd always used, the plea wrapped in performance. I looked at her, then at Megan, then at my father. "You're here because your plan didn't work," I said quietly. "You tried guilt. You tried public pressure. You even tried scaring my kids. You crossed every line, and now that people see who you really are, you have nowhere else to go." Rachel opened her mouth, but I kept going. "You thought I'd cave like always. You counted on me folding because I hate seeing anyone fall. But the thing is, sometimes the fall is what saves people." The silence that followed was the purest sound I'd ever heard. Dad shifted his weight. "You don't mean that," he said. I met his eyes for the first time. "I mean exactly that." I took one step backward toward the door. "And before you ask, no, I'm not deleting the post. No, I'm not pretending this never happened. And no, I'm not helping with a damn thing. You can figure it out the way adults do. Or you can't. But I'm not your safety net anymore." Then I turned and went back inside. They didn't follow. No shouting, no crying, no plates this time. Just the faint sound of their footsteps leaving my porch. When the door clicked shut behind me, the house exhaled. I leaned against the wall, eyes closed, feeling every beat of my heart as if it had been waiting years to find its own rhythm. Ian walked over. No questions. No, what did they say? He just wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "You did it." And I realized he was right. I had finally ended the longest unpaid job in the world, being the family provider of both money and forgiveness. That night, I slept like someone who'd changed the locks on her nightmares. A few days later, a message came from Melissa. She'd visited my mom. She's starting to realize how badly she messed up, Melissa said. Lydia and a few others confronted her, told her the truth. They said you didn't abandon anyone. They abandoned you the moment you stopped paying. I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to cry. Another part wanted to laugh again. The same tired, broken laugh I'd had on the porch. Melissa hesitated. She asked if you'd ever talk to her again. I took a long breath. Tell her the door isn't locked, I said, but it's not wide open anymore. We hung up. That night, I sat by the window after the kids fell asleep. The dishes in the cabinet gleamed softly under the kitchen light, unbroken this time. Ian poured tea, handed me a mug, and said, "You look lighter." "I am," I told him. "Peace weighs less than guilt." Outside, the wind moved through the trees with the same rhythm as my breathing. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the next demand, the next emergency, the next Venmo request disguised as love. The only thing that buzzed on my phone was a notification from my daughter's drawing app. Your child finished her castle. I opened it, a digital castle, bright and crooked, full of windows, so the light could get out as well as in. I smiled. That's when I knew the story was over, not because they'd apologized, but because I didn't need one anymore. Weeks later, I updated my will, a trust for my kids, guardianship assigned to Ian's brother if anything ever happened to us, nothing left to my parents or sisters, not out of revenge, but out of clarity. Love without boundaries is just leverage, and I was done being anyone's leverage. I closed the lawyer's folder, thanked him, and walked out into sunlight that felt like the first honest weather of my life. At home, I printed one last photo, the family dinner. From that night, I wasn't invited. I didn't print it for bitterness. I printed it as proof of what pretending costs, of what silence funds. Then I slid it into a drawer under the folder labeled Receipts. Not for memory, for peace of mind. Because some stories aren't meant to be retold. They're meant to be ended. And this one finally was.